We were driving, I don't know if you've got the story yet, but this kind of backtracks a little bit. We were driving when I was about 12, and we were going to, I think we were going to Rapid City to get groceries or something, and my mom was singing, and she had us each pick a part, and we started singing harmony with her just off the bat, just hit it, you know. And I was always the pitch police with Orion and Waba, and I taught them everything they know. Make sure you put that in there. I'm just kidding. She felt like the Lord was calling us into the ministry to go on the road and travel and minister in churches and stuff. So we left when I was 12 and hit the road and went by faith. After a year or two, it really started flowing with us, and our hearts, I remember my mom, my sister, my brother, and I all were in unity for the most part with where our hearts were and why we were doing this, and you know, it was all for the Lord. We literally lived out of the trunk of our car. We didn't even have suitcases. We just had at one point our clothes were folded in, here's Mom's section, here's Waba's, here's Orion's, and here's mine. You know, the main times that I would feel like this is exactly what we're supposed to be doing is every time we'd get up there on stage and we would start singing. And it was that feeling, you know, it was, there would be a breakthrough and things, you know, you just felt, I could just feel it. I don't know how to explain it, but at certain times I honestly felt like I was just going to come out of my skin. I couldn't contain what I felt like was being poured through me at times when we were ministering, and it was always, you know, upward, directed to God. My mom, when she was raising us and to do this, you know, and we were doing this, and you know, and all of that training that she gave us, it was, you know, this isn't about us, this is about the Lord and giving Him glory. But the more that we sang together through the years, I'd say 3, 4, maybe 5 years into it, I could see how we were getting better, well rehearsed. And but towards the end, you know, when we had stopped, I think I was about 18, 19 when we stopped, you know, ministering in the churches and stuff. At that point, I felt like we had actually hit a mark that was, it was the best that we had ever sounded together, and you know, we didn't have to put a lot of thought or effort into it. It just worked, it just meshed, and it blended really well. I walked away from it first. I left the family, I left the ministry, I left the music stuff, because I was really burned out. I felt pretty broken and just beat up by the whole, you know, and I'm not trying to, I wouldn't trade any of it for the world. It was the best thing that could have ever happened to me and my family. And there's awesome memories and great things, but you know, that is the reason that I left, to be honest. I was just on burnout mode, and I just didn't want to do it anymore. I was sick of being in front of people. I was just sick of the whole thing at that time. We had just put so much of our heart, our spirit, and our soul into it, you know, and not a lot, we didn't get to see a lot of it coming back in any way, shape, or form. It just put me in burnout mode. You know, what are we doing this for? You know, you forget sometimes when you don't see something, but I know that's wrong. But we didn't get a lot of ministering back towards, like, we were always in front of people and giving our testimonies and sharing our life and being completely exposed to them, but we didn't get to see that with anyone else. So it just, it kind of tore me down. I just stormed off with my little stick and the little handkerchief on the back. That's about all I had, too. I ended up, I came back to South Dakota when I left, and then a pastor from Florida had called me and asked me, my family kept going, they kept trying to minister because they still had those dates to fulfill, you know. And so one of the churches that they were at, the pastor called me and asked me if he bought me an airline ticket, would I come down to Florida? And he said, your family really needs you. He gave me this, you know, this whole thing. And I said no, a couple times, and he kept calling me and asking me, and finally I was like, okay, all right, I'll come. So went down to Florida, and I ended up staying there for close to 3 years. The music and the, you know, the traveling and some of that stuff was, to me, it seemed on an extreme end. And so for some reason, I was always trying to find that balance, and music at that point, when I came back here, was not a priority to me at all. I loved being a mom, loved, you know, that was my whole, like I said, that was my life, you know. The music stuff came back in when we all ended up back in the same area. We had tossed the idea around for a while before, because my mom was living in Ohio and my sister was living in Ohio. They were going to World Harvest at the time, and they were in the Columbus area. And Orion and Stacy and I we had put on like I think there was one major show where we were trying to bring the old classic, the vintage stuff together, you know. So the idea was there. You know, we knew what we wanted to do, and we tossed around the idea for a year or so, and then my mom called from Ohio, and she said, you know, we're thinking about moving back to South Dakota, and we want to make sure that we get this thing rolling somehow, some way. You know, this is what we need to do. I have this idea, and she had this idea of what we're doing now, and so they did end up. We all ended up in the same area about 3 years ago. For the most part, it was just refreshing to be doing what we love to do and to be doing it together. Over the past 3 years, we've relearned how to work with each other, and I think our working relationship now, our lives are probably more hectic now because we all have full-time jobs, and we're doing this also. But I think, you know, growing up together and doing that was a good training ground for wherever we're heading with this in the future. You know, just, I appreciate my family and my brother and my sister and my mom, just singing with them now more than I ever have. I loved it. Like I said, I gave you the reasons that we were doing it when we were younger, but now it's like, just, you know, I love it because I get to be with them.